Well, with our recent videos and all the recent scandals in the Catholic Church, not only in America, but in Argentina, even in Rome, lay people are asking, what can we do? And the number one answer is penance, penance, penance. That's what we saw in the Secret of Fatima. We must pray and fast. Our Lord Jesus Christ, second person of the Trinity, in Matthew chapter 17, spoke to the apostles. He said, some demons only come out through prayer and fasting. And so fasting is just depriving ourselves of food, of energy for the glory of God and for an outcome. And so today, Tim and I are going to talk about Lent, because Lent starts up this week. You don't have much more time to prepare. And we're going to give you some advice on it, but we're mainly going to look at the history. We're going to compare Ramadan to Lent, Thomas Aquinas on Lent, pre-Vatican II fasting versus post-Vatican II fasting. So lots of cool stuff to cover today. Tim, how are you?
I'm excellent. I'm glad you said the thing about energy. Depriving yourself of energy is what it is to fast, because that's when you do real fast. We're going to talk about the kind of weak-need, modified modern fast.
Like I'm giving up milk chocolate, but not dark chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm giving up. My little brother once gave up, when he was a little kid, he gave up macaroons. My mom was like, do you even know what a macaroon is? That's when you give up, when you do a real fast, the way that the early Christians did, you notice how depleted you are. It's hard to go to work. It's hard to get up. So food is ATP.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Aristotle talks about energeia. That's action. That's act. God is pure energeia. He's pure act. Thomas Aquinas teaches that. So when we deprive ourselves of this energy, energeia, we become weaker. And I mean, this kind of goes back to the whole story of the Bible, from Genesis all the way to Revelation. You know, God perfects his strength in our weakness.
Absolutely.
So it's an anti-Pelagian thing where you're saying, yeah, God, I can't do this. You know, I can't have enough energy to overcome the scandals in the church, bad bishops, bad priests, molestations, all these horrible things that are going on, bad doctrine, heresy. Only you can do it. And so I'm going to deprive myself and let you do it.
Absolutely.
It's humble.
Yeah.
It's humble.
Yeah. And you're three times I asked that this thorn in the side in the church was removed, and 3 times I was denied. And in your greatness, I'll be small, you be great, Lord. Yeah. That's what I'm coming to with the crisis in the church. And I think that's what a lot of people are at roughly the same timeline.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, people say, well, we could, let's all, tweet the bishops. Let's write emails to the bishops. Let's write letters. Let's stage a protest. Let's not give money. And, all those things are doable. And I think there's a context for all of them. But ultimately, this is a battle not with flesh and blood, but with dominions and principalities and these higher demonic powers. McCarrick didn't do this by himself. He had the assistance of demonic powers. We all have to accept that.
I liked your answer, by the way, when last time we were talking to Pat Coffin, I think on the Man Show about a month and a half ago. And he was like, so what are the things that can be done, in the usual, quotidian fashion of, we can make us a checklist. And he pitched the question to you. How can we make a difference with our bishops? And you're like, you can just pray. You can't really do anything else, because look, they don't care. They're in charge. They're running. They're the bus driver. And when it's not a publicity campaign, when the bus driver doesn't mind, now that it's a bit of a coming out era, a third or a fourth era of this pontificate, and they're like, this was an eventuality. Like Hans Gruber says, the cops will eventually find out. It's no longer at all a publicity campaign. We can't do anything. I liked your stark, short answer there. Yeah. All we can do is this stuff. That's why I think you want to do today's show.
I'll write the letter to my bishop, and I'll tell him that my annual $5,000 pledge, I'm pulling it.
Or less. Or
whatever. Yeah,
I'm going to pull my 50. It's like, he don't care.
Yeah. He doesn't, even if you pull your 5,000 pledge or your 10,000 pledge, he doesn't really care. Right. And they're like, well, at the end of the year, he might not have enough money. Well, he'll sell your parish.
Right.
He'll sell the property. I mean, he'll sell the dwindling convent across town. He's not going to go out like that. in his time period, there's enough money and there's enough real estate for him to make it to 75 when he retires as a bishop. So these ploys aren't going to work. What we need is to unlock the powers of heaven, unlock graces, right? Like we saw in the released Third Secret of Fatima, right? And the angel's like penance, penance, penance. And there's the great light and there's Our Lady. And it's almost like Our Lady's light sort of, I like to think of it as like averting the wrath, She's staying there as a mother.
The primary message of Fatima is penance, people. It's easy to get distracted. There are other kind of secondary messages that are important. But I was talking about this with a new friend the other day. Penance, penance, penance. That's the message. And prayer and fasting is the way to do that. Yeah. And obviously confession. But you beef up the confession, the sacramental confession, by prayer and especially fasting.
Right. And the cool thing about fasting is you don't really need a spiritual director to approve fasting unless it's super extreme. We're not talking about, start scourging yourself, wear a cilice, wear a hair shirt, go roll around in the thorn bushes, submerge yourself under ice. Like some of these penances that you see in the church fathers and the desert fathers, even with St. Francis, that kind of stuff requires spiritual direction. We're not even going there. The biblical Catholic norm for penance is prayer and fasting. That's it. Yep. So let's do it. Right? Now, Lent's coming up on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and you got to have your game plan set before. Then you can't get to lunch on Wednesday at 11 o'clock and be like, oh, yeah, today's Ash Wednesday. You fail. You're not with us, right? So before we do that, maybe we should look at the rules of fasting before and after Vatican II, because we as a church have gotten really soft when it comes to fasting and abstinence. Now, fasting and abstinence are different. Abstinence is not eating meat. Fasting is not eating food, period. Now, the rules before Vatican II, if you look at the 1917 Code of Canon Law, for abstinence, it was 7 and up. 7 up. So basically, when you did your first communion, you were held to abstinence. And that was abstinence on every Friday. Mm-hmm. The whole year.
Year round.
Yeah. So even kids, after Vatican II, it was switched to 14 and up for abstinence.
What's the change? There's some, ontological or anthropological change fundamentally after Vatican II. I mean, it's like you said before we were rolling, that's offensive. Doubling the age without any reason.
Well, it goes back to, I'm writing this book on the corruption of the Catholic Church and the papacy, and I've really been focused on John the 23rd and Paul the 6th, because so much, including all this stuff, happens under Paul the 6th. But, when you look at the opening speech of John the 23rd at Vatican II, you've talked about this before, Timothy. He refers to the prophets of doom, which is going to be our sludge metal band when we start one. Right. I looked it up. Right. There is no band named Prophets of Doom. I'm surprised.
You looked it up. Right. That's funny.
Prophets of Doom. So he refers to the prophets of doom, and he says, we're not going to follow the prophets of doom. We're going to have an openness to the modern world. Right.
Right.
I think he even uses the word optimism in that paragraph.
Right.
So it's not that there's an ontological change with human persons, but there was a change in the outlook in which our Pope and the cardinals and the councils saw man. And it wasn't of prophets of doom. It was of optimism.
Right.
Like, what did John the 23rd say when he opened the third secret, Tim?
He said, this is not for my time. The secret is not for my pontificate.
Yeah. What does that tell you? Because the third secret was penance, penance, penance.
Right. It's like, this is the wrong time. It's like, but it's from heaven, bro.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be open in 1960. Father. What's interesting about that is John the 23rd disobeyed Our Lady. It was supposed to be open in 1960. He definitely opened it up in 1959.
Oh, you mean he disobeyed her the other way, not the usual way we're talking about where he didn't reveal it. But yeah, he did open it up.
He jumped the gun.
That's right.
He jumped the gun.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. Is there some technique? Yeah, whatever.
Because the instructions from Lucia are it would be opened at my death or 1960.
Right.
And it doesn't say before 1960, it says in 1960. This is why we were talking before. We were wondering, did Pius XII see it? No, Pius XII never saw it. And the reason I looked it up that he never saw it when it was brought to Rome in the 50s was that it said 1960 and he was obedient. Pius XII was going to obey the instructions. I bet you he held up to the light. I bet you he wanted to know what it said.
Right.
But he knew it was not yet 1960. But John
there were those high-ranking prelates that held it up to the light.
The one in Portugal.
Vatican's, yeah.
The one in Portugal, he held up to the light, said it was one page, I think about 25 lines long.
Exactly.
That's
which shows the spirit of obedience. You know, if you tell your kids not to open Christmas gifts and they're going to obey you and they're not peeling the paper away, yeah, that's fine. They can do everything they can.
They can shake it. Yeah, we let our kids look at it and ask them what they think it is. Yeah,
it builds a suspicion that's a spirit of obedience, willing obedience.
Yeah.
So you didn't say I couldn't hold it up to the light, Our Lady.
Right. So I mean, this is a major change that happened at Vatican II, and we wonder why the church is so limp and so effeminate and so weak and so infiltrated, and we put down our weapons. We let down our guard. I mean, it would be like if you won the Super Bowl and then your coach said, hey, for next season, we're just going to cut in half all of our training. You guys are good. I'm optimistic about you guys. We won the Super Bowl. You know, we don't need prophets of doom saying we're going to lose. We're winners. And because of that, next year, we're going to cut everything in half.
That's a good analogy.
Give you guys, more time to pursue your interests.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Are they going to win the Super Bowl next year?
No way.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we always talk about, or I always make a similar analogy going the other way. Like, who are the greatest saints? They're the ones that were the hardest on themselves. Kobe Bryant is the guy, during his heyday, 2005 to 2010. When he would show up to games 3 hours beforehand, he'd get the keys to the gym on road trips. And it's like, he needed the practice, technically speaking, the least, if you're going to rest on your laurels. But the Christian life, when St. Paul says to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, he means never rest on your laurels. So
it means to work out.
Work out. I've gotten better the last year. He means, okay, so now double that. Then the next year, if you're twice as holy, double that. And then that's what Protestantism is ultimately utterly bereft of, right? Is the idea of, okay, yeah, keep getting holier. The great saints, we've been infected with this Protestant notion of basically just of fatalism, right? Ontological, sin-based fatalism. Like we're never going to be God on this side of the eschaton. So just accept that. But it's like, no. The great saints would rather die than commit another sin. And by the end of they're still stained by original sins, but by the end of their lives, I forget which saint this was, said she would rather die than commit even another venial sin. It's like, you can come darn close.
There's a story of St. Louis IX, King of France, that when he was a boy, this is what I've heard, his mother told him, I would rather you die in my presence than for you to commit a sin. And that made a big impact on him to pursue a holy life. But I'm sure that's kind of the motto of every saint. Even a venial sin offends God, so you don't want to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So, basically there's a big shakedown after Vatican II that was optimistic about the world. We wanted to modernize everything with modernism. And it was optimistic about other religions. Not just Protestantism, but Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. You see that in Dignitatis Humanae and Nostra Aetate.
Nostra Aetate, yeah.
Both of those. I mean, even regarding Buddhists, and I think it's Nostra Aetate, it says that they can attain perfect detachment. Buddhists. It's like, oh, really? Without grace, without baptism, they can attain what St. Teresa of Avila was trying to attain. Like, what?
Not to mention that line is a sort of vindication of the wayward formal object of their religion. Perfect detachment is a Buddhistic
Right.
goal. It's only in a secondary sense is it a Christian goal, but it's a specific nod. It's like a double nod to the religion because it's using their terms.
Exactly. And praising them. So you see in all these documents, and then you of course see in the spirit of Vatican II, because remember we talked about Schillebeck says we put ambiguity into the documents and we knew how we would interpret them after the council. So weaponized ambiguity goes back to Schillebeck's and all the ressourcement, nouvelle théologie theologians. But
let me jump in here. If people that are watching this think, if they bought the distinction between ivory towers and day-to-day life, us, the plebes or whatever, just, in other words, there's a skepticism in the mind of the hypothetical viewer I'm talking about that would go like this. Okay, so they changed the rules, but still, Lent is the same thing to us now that it was before the change. I can't like do a perfectly controlled experiment here, but let me evidence with an anecdote here the kind of entitlement attitude this fosters in the 2019 Lenten observer. I was having lunch on a Friday, it was 4 years back, with two of my family members. I won't say who. And, we met at a sandwich shop, and I was the last one to meet there. And I was like, I had to order and all that. And I ordered something, just cheese or whatever, grilled cheese or something. And my two relations had ordered meat in their sandwiches. And I was like, oh, you guys you ordered meat, you got to pull that out or just reorder. And what the univocal response was to me, and I get this a lot, and we all do in some corners of our families, they're like, Tim, you're being a literalist. God wouldn't want us to waste this. And I was like, well, you can at least waste the meat or go give it to our dogs at home, but that fasting is important and God really wants it. Right. And the canonical sanction for fasting is definite. Right. I mean, I don't think I'm not really holding my breath listening to what your response would have been, but is it safe to assume that your response to that would have been the same? I mean,
I would have said the same thing. Yeah,
of course.
I mean, it was so before the Second Vatican Council, it was so ingrained even in society that every single secular elementary school and high school served fish or fish sticks every Friday in every single school because there were so many Catholics and they knew that Catholics don't eat meat on Friday. And so here's where you have society being sanctified by the leaven of Catholics in their midst, bringing about a major societal change. I mean, even here in Texas, it's kind of cool, Tim. During Lent on Fridays, many of the Mexican food restaurants are advertising meatless Friday specials. Right?
And McDonald's too, right?
And McDonald's,
around the country. Yeah. We got that in the late 50s, I think.
McFish actually was started to market to Catholics. I have if you Google Taylor Marshall McDonald's McFish, or is it the McFish or McFillet? Anyway, McDonald's Fish Friday. I have a whole history of how McDonald's started the McFish sandwich based on Catholics. So it goes back to that. So we were able to actually transform and change civil society based upon our customs. Vatican II said, no, we don't, like your relations said, no, let's not be literalist. God doesn't really care.
Yeah.
If we eat meat.
That's what they said.
Yeah. God doesn't really care if we eat meat. And you're just a prophet of doom, Tim.
That's right.
You're a prophet of doom. John 23rd said we don't need no prophets of doom.
I'm a cradle Catholic, remember? So these are fellow Catholics, and I was getting the prophet of doom treatment. Basically like Richard Dawkins, the famed atheist. It's what he's saying about God. God doesn't care what we do with our groins, he always says, in less refined terms. He doesn't care you think God's petty? They're essentially saying that. They're like, you think God really cares if you have, they're like, we'll try to do it better next Friday, but if we forget, I'm busy, I got work, got to make money. God doesn't care if I eat meat. I'm like, no. I mean, he really does. Like once you give into that impulse, that entitlement impulse and the non-literalist impulse on things that are meant to be literal. I mean, we're always making fun of LBs. Yesterday in the chat, people were asking, what's an LB? I was like, you shouldn't take figurative things literally, but you should take literal things literally. And canon law is not figurative.
Exactly.
Right?
Canon law is not
the church.
Canon law is not Tolkien. It's not Lord of the Rings. You do what it says. Now, regarding meat, a lot of people over the years have asked me, Taylor, Dr. Marshall, why is it that we can't eat meat on Friday as Catholics? What's so bad about meat? Now, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I did a whole podcast on this, episode 129. I'll try to remember to link it in the show notes. And it's Thomas Aquinas explaining why we can eat fish but not meat during Lent. There's a whole theological argument to it, and it's fascinating. So I want you to go listen to it. Yeah, flesh meat. Yeah. So I want you to go listen to that episode 129. You can listen on iTunes, Stitcher. It's also on YouTube. There's no video like this. It's just an audio put up. But it's Aquinas on why fish and not meat. So you'll learn a lot there. One of the things that was shocking to me, Tim, is before Vatican II, these were the days of fasting and complete abstinence. So no meat, with some fasting. Right now, it's only Ash Wednesday and Good Friday after Vatican II. That's all we got. Bare minimum for fasting and abstinence. Before Vatican II, Ash Wednesday, the Fridays and Saturdays in Lent, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Didn't
know that.
Ember Days. These were partial fasts, right? Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. I have a video on Ember Days on YouTube. Go check that out if you want to know what Ember Days are. Ember Days are making a comeback, and I think that's cool too, because Ember Days are 4 times a year at the turning of each of the 4 seasons, and it goes back to a Roman practice of praying for the crops of each season. And so the popes in Rome said, well, let's keep this Roman custom and let's pray for vocations, because priests are the ones who bring in the crops of souls. They're the farmers, as Christ said. And so the Ember Days were 4 times a year to pray for priests. And usually that was when ordinations happened, were on the Ember Days. So all the laity in the church would pray for priests, pray for ordinations. And at Vatican II, we just said, we don't need that anymore. It's just so dumb. Okay, so we had Ember Days.
Offensive.
It is offensive. Yeah. You also had the Vigil of Pentecost, the day before Pentecost. The Vigil of Christmas, folks, was abstinence. The December 24th, you could not eat meat, and it was partial fast. So
yeah, start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can be the? I mean, there's not a good. This is like one of those things where you're like, oh, I want to talk to a social justice warrior. I never really want to, and you're just going to get in a yelling match anyway. But I want to sit them down and strap them down and just and force them to be civil, which they never do, and ask them, Islam, which treats women and gays so horribly compared to Christianity, they get a pass, but Christianity, which treats women and gays so with utter dignity, you say is hateful. I just want to work this out like premise by premise. This is because I'm a philosopher. Right. A philosopher. I just get frustrated. I just want to I want to convert them with reason, but that's never going to happen. Similarly, I want to do this with basically everything, with the major cultural changes in Vatican II and ecclesiological changes and sacrament,
everything
and liturgical
changes. It was a total shift.
It's a total shift. But here, it's kind of easier in a way, because if you talk about something like Lenten changes, their hackles aren't up automatically. They're not going to respond as allergically, give a knee-jerk response as if you're like, hey, I definitely prefer the Latin Mass. Could I talk to you about liturgy? Boom, hackles up. They're going to be defensive. But with Lenten changes, it's not such a talking point, right? It's like, so I feel like you might be able to have a more fruitful conversation by sitting someone who would defend this New World Order. Not to use the term of art here, but they might defend it. You sit them down and you might actually have something just like, why the change? Human beings are fundamentally the same. Human nature is the same. There is an aspect of a hefty aspect of of Lent that ought to correspond with so-called prophecies of doom. So what's the change? I know I'm never going to get that, by the way. I'm not quixotic, sufficiently quixotic to think I'm going to get that, but I want to do it. I want it sometime before I die.
Yeah. Well,
I want a good answer.
I think most your cultural Catholics who probably like God doesn't really care what we do. And my answer is God cares about everything. Like people say, well, does God really care about who wins that football game? Yes, God really cares. He cares about everything. Those are men's jobs and their families, and it's an industry, and it's the economy, and it's moral, and all kind. God cares about every detail. God cares about it. But yeah, I mean, you look at these changes, and you just sit someone down, and you say, so why did we get rid of Ember Days? Why? Cultural Catholic, like, well, God doesn't really care. He's going to give us priests regardless if we pray or have a special day on the calendar,
right,
for vocation. So it doesn't really matter. It's not up to us. Right. It's not up to us, but we want to, again, deprive ourselves of energy, fast and pray that we get good and holy priests. This is why Ember Days are coming back. People are like, wait, we have over 50% of priests are homosexual, and every one of these dioceses has, 5, 6 dozens of cases that have been, there have been payouts, or it's mind blowing. It's like, okay, well, we need to, Ember Days. That was a good thing. We could get holy priests. We could replenish our priesthood, guys to go out and bring in the crops of souls. Let's bring back Ember Days. So I think there is a bit of a renaissance. And I hope that this show, Tim, helps in this renaissance of penance, in particular for Lenten observance. Yes, you are only required by canon law to fast on Ash Wednesday and Friday. And by the way, it's so weak sauce. It's 1 meal and 2 collations, which means 1 meal and 2 snacks.
I know.
That's not biblical fasting. Biblical fasting is no food in your mouth for 24 hours. No food. That's fasting.
Right.
Right. So it's been weakened. And then you only have to abstain from meat on Fridays in Lent.
Right.
It's so minor league.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. So it's not a sun up, sun down thing. That's a common misconception out there. A lot of people think, oh, I want to do a Vatican, a 1970 fast plus. It's not just while the sun's up. I've had a lot of students ask me that. They said their parents are saying, I mean, we're just clarifying that it's
midnight to midnight. It's
hours.
Midnight.
Yeah.
Fasting in the Catholic Church. So it's kind of complicated because your obligation for Sunday Mass can be fulfilled by sundown on Saturday. Sometimes it gets pushed to 4 p.m., right? But the rule is that your obligation, and this is again since Vatican II. Before Vatican II, this wasn't the case. It was midnight to midnight for your obligation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they changed it at Vatican II that you can make your Sunday obligation from sundown on Saturday. But fasting is still midnight to midnight. So at 12:01 on Thursday night going into Friday night, you're on to your abstinence. And it doesn't end till 12:01 Friday night going into Saturday night. That's how the Roman Church calculates fasting periods. Yeah, so it's not like on Friday night when the sun goes down, you order a sausage pizza and eat it.
Yeah, no. I knew the meat was midnight to midnight, but a lot of people. I mean, the fasting's all messed up because of the change they made. They just messed up the fast with these two small meals, which are not in total the size of one. I'm like, they're making this more mathematical than it is. I eat different sized meals every meal of my life,
Right.
When we weigh the ounces of food, they're trying to make it sound like there's a rhyme or a reason to it.
So if I usually eat 3 pieces of pizza for dinner, does that mean that I can have 3 slices of cheese pizza for dinner and then have 1 slice for breakfast and 1 slice for lunch? That would technically not add up to the full meal, but that's not really fasting. Eating a slice of pizza at breakfast and then a lunch and 3 at dinner, that's just sort of like dieting.
Yeah, that's small. that's portion control.
That's portion control. Yeah.
Wait, I'm just curious, and I'm not even trying to be funny here. It's something that I ask everyone that we eat with on Friday nights. What is your typical? We'll leave Lent aside for a second. What is your typical pizza count? pizza piece count when you have pizza for dinner on a night?
For me?
3? Yeah.
No, I'd say probably between 3 and 6, just depending. I would guess.
I always want to go 6, but I always feel bad. I start feeling bad at 4, so I try to restrain to 3.
Because 6 is like a half a pizza. That's kind of... When I was a teenager, when I was like 17, 18, I would eat an entire pizza.
Pizza, me too.
Yeah, no questions. No questions.
Because I've been playing 4 hours of basketball. You know, you can eat 2 pizzas.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's...
Okay, so I want to look at medieval Lent. I want to go back to what it used to be. This is described by St. Thomas Aquinas. And there's this thing called the Black Fast. You ever heard of that? Black Fast?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So Black Fast, people, means just no food at all. Mm-hmm. So when let's say you go to bed on Thursday night, you eat no food until Saturday morning when you wake up. And you have breakfast. By the way, what's the word breakfast mean? Break fast. You're breaking your fast. So, yeah, that would be a Black Fast. Mm-hmm. Is a Black Fast. Now, we know from early on in the church, this comes from Socrates, not the philosopher, but Socrates, the church historian. There's 2 Socrates. Socrates, the church historian, he's writing in the 5th century. He says it was common for fasting, kind of a black fast, no food whatsoever, to be broken at 3 p.m. for Christians. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is Jesus died at 3 o'clock. So you're uniting yourself to the sufferings, the passion of Christ, the scourging of Christ, the crowning of thorns, hanging on the cross. And then when Christ dies at 3, which is the hour of mercy, Christians would break fast. They would have a snack. So this goes back to the 5th century. We're talking about 400s. He's explained that's the custom for Christians. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I just read that, coincidentally, I just read that on Thursday. Not even preparing for the show. Yeah.
From Socrates, church history?
Not directly from him, but it must have emanated from him. Right. The 3 p.m. thing, the passion, the end of the passion, the breaking of the fast, all that. Yeah, I didn't know that was Socrates, the Christian. So
Thomas Aquinas, he dies in 1274. By the way, Thomas Aquinas' feast day on the real calendar, that is the pre-Vatican II calendar, is March 7th. That's the day he died. I have a video on how he died. That's really cool on YouTube. So it's kind of appropriate that Lent starts, and then the very next day we got Thomas Aquinas. So today we're doing the Thomas Aquinas Lent. Okay, so Thomas Aquinas says no meat. Check out the video on why no meat. No eggs. That's a hard one for me because
really?
No eggs.
He says no eggs?
Thomas Aquinas says no eggs.
Damn.
Yeah, and I love my eggs.
I love eggs.
I eat eggs about every day. I eat eggs about every day.
Especially on fast days, on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Do you go scramble? How do you do your eggs, Tim?
Scramble. I like scramblies.
You got to go sunny side up, where the yolks are totally runny. You got a little bit of white runny.
No, they're good. They're good.
That's just
I like
the best.
them all different ways. But I prefer scramblies, but I like sunny side up still. Yeah.
Okay.
Eggs are just delicious.
Eggs are wonderful. Yeah. And this is where the Easter egg comes from, Tim. You didn't have an egg for all of Lent. And then you go, let's say I'm meeting you on Easter. So I take an egg and I decorate it and I give it to you. And you're like, I know you love eggs, bro. Today we can eat eggs. And I hand it to you.
Yeah, is that where gingerbread decorating comes from too?
That comes from somewhere else.
So you decorate an egg for a man and in bright pastels, and you're like,
or your child, or your child.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, because eggs are off limits. In fact, there's a custom. When I was an Anglican priest, there's a custom in Anglicanism where everybody eats pancakes on Shrove Tuesday, the day before Ash Wednesday. You ever heard of this? It's an English custom. Yeah, so everybody eats pancakes. And the purpose of that was to use up all of your eggs and all of your butter, because in the medieval era, no one ate butter or eggs during Lent.
So butter either?
Yeah, I'm getting to that next.
Wow.
Yeah, so you would cook up some flapjacks and everybody would chow down.
Yeah, in Catholic Fat Tuesday, well, in cultural Catholic Fat Tuesday, it's just basically everyone drinking all their alcohol, right?
Right.
But if you do it the real way, it's like, no, it's genuinely obese Tuesday because you're eating all your butter products.
Right. Exactly.
Obese Tuesday.
Yeah. So the next one, Thomas Aquinas says no lactocemia, which is a Latin word for dairy products. So lactocemia would include milk, cheese, cream, and butter.
All Lent or just on these days?
All Lent.
Well, then what do you eat? Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean to go to when I'm not eating meat. Yeah.
Now, there was an exception, perhaps. It seems that the Celtic Christians and the Christians on the British Isles, when St. Augustine of Canterbury was sent there by Gregory the Great, they were keeping Lent. They were Catholics there, right? And they had fudged it and were maybe eating dairy products. And there's kind of an exception for a while for English people, but eventually the British Isles were no longer having dairy products during Lent. So just to recap so far, no food till 3 p.m., black fast till 3 p.m., no meat, no lard, right? You can't like get some asparagus and fry them up in lard. That's not allowed. No eggs, no dairy products. Interestingly enough, beer and wine are allowed, even encouraged. So you can drink. The idea is they're made from vegetable products, barley, grapes.
It's a little fudgy. I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's allowed because, especially beer in the monasteries was used to give them strength for their work, Benedictines. It's like liquid bread, and it's always available. You don't have pantries. You don't have microwaves. You can't be like, hey, I'm going to have a Pop-Tart or a Hot Pocket. I'm going to warm that up. The only kind of go-to snack you have ready that's not infected and doesn't go bad is beer. So I love that.
Pop-Tarts and Hot Pockets are so durable with so many preservatives. They could have come all the way from Thomas Aquinas' day, but they have not actually.
That's right. So what did they eat? Well, we learned that medieval, Catholics in the medieval era and in the church fathers, they ate bread. That was a big part of it. Veggies and salt. Salt was a big part of their diet. And I think I've read somewhere that if you eat salt, which I'm not encouraging everybody to just go and eat a bunch of salt, but it helps with your hunger and gives you some energy when you're in a fasting state. A lot of people who eat paleo or, start to lose weight, they find that they need to eat a little bit of salt because they're not getting as much salt as they used to. And so,
like a teaspoon or what?
No, I don't think you're like taking it straight. I think you're just, putting it on your food, salting your food. Now, here's another one, Tim. No sexual intercourse during Lent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and pagan kings got pretty pissed off about this because a lot of times pagan kings were married to Catholic princesses and queens. And they were like, sorry, it's Lent. Shop's closed.
Wow.
And the pagan kings were pretty ticked about that. Have you ever noticed, by the way, Tim, I wrote a blog post about this. You probably already know it. The main strategy, it seems, that in like the middle to late European era for evangelizing pagans was you get a really attractive Catholic princess and marry her to the most like vicious pagan warlord. And usually he converts to Catholicism and gets baptized.
Yeah, that's how you created the line of stewards, right?
Almost all the Germanic kings.
Yeah.
The Nordic kings, all up in, Norway and Sweden, all those places. That's how it happened. Usually he's married to a Catholic princess. He can't win a war. So he says, well, I'll try your God. And if I win, I'll be baptized. Clovis, the Franks.
Yeah, Clovis. That's right.
So, I mean, that's how you got it done back in the day.
It wouldn't work the same way the other way around with queens and taking princes, where men and women are motivated by different things. Yeah, no, that seems to be a prime motivator. Yeah.
So no sexual intercourse, which means there wasn't a lot of babies being born 9 months after Lent, I'm guessing. Or if there were, people were going, somebody didn't keep Lent.
That's funny. Wait, but so this is, for clarity's sake, this is not what was on the books in 1965. This is a third.
This is what's on the books in 1270s.
This is hardcore.
This is very hardcore.
You always see what was on the books in the 50s and 60s and, time almost immemorial,
after this,
and it's not that tough. People say it's tough.
Yeah. After this, we'll look at the Society of St. Pius X has Google SSPX fasting rules.
I've seen this.
And they have everything that's canonically since Vatican II that you're required to do. And then they have below that everything that was, I think, either pre-1962 or 1960, just so you can read on and read the others. In fact, I read it before the show just to kind of make sure I had all my facts right. And it's a good comparison, but you're right. If you look at the 1960, 1962 rules, it's a lot harder than what we have now, but it's not this.
No.
This is Thomistic Lent.
Are you doing Thomistic Lent this year?
I'm going to do modified.
It's like my second Exodus 90 is somewhat modified, but I wanted to re-up for
I think I'm going to do the black fast till 3 and no meat.
Every day?
Yeah. Now that's the next one. So there's this whole idea, Sundays are off in Lent. That's not true. In the old days, there's no days off on Sundays. You continued all of these rules on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because the priest does he wear white or purple on Sundays in Lent? Purple. It's penance. It's a penance day. You don't sing the Alleluia on Sundays in Lent. You don't sing the Gloria on Sundays in Lent. It's a penitential Sunday. It's a Sunday. We celebrate the resurrection of Christ, but we're doing it in a penitential way. So no Sundays off. Let's see. Oh, and Good Friday was a black fast, and it started from Monday, Thursday night until noon on Holy Saturday.
Wow. That's Maundy. It's heavy.
Yeah. So it began to change. I mean, basically, you know how in English we say noon? That comes from the Latin nons, which is the 9th hour of the day. It corresponds to 3 p.m.
Right.
So you break your fast at 3 p.m. at nons. Well, the monks were hungry, and they're like, well, let's just chant nons 3 hours earlier. We can break our fast. So the English word noon, which means 3 p.m., got moved to 12 p.m. That's why we say it the wrong way in English. I don't know if other languages are like that, but English is messed up like that. It's a corruption.
Yeah, I noticed that when you look at, if you try praying the office or even just look at the Holy Office, it's like this is staggered by 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. In Germany, there was the Germans are always trying to make money on the church. Like Martin Luther's era when they're trying to sell indulgences. Right now, the Catholic bishops, they get all of their funding through the German government. When you fill out your taxes as a German, you click which box you want, Jewish, Protestant, Catholic, and then a percentage of your money goes to the Catholic bishops. Mm-hmm. So the German bishops have always been savvy on how to get their dime. Mm-hmm. And they were so in the Middle Ages too, because they said, if you pay the bishop, he'll give you a dispensation to consume dairy products during Lent. This was in Germany, apparently only.
It's corrupt, full on corrupt.
I know, man.
Can I have a milkshake? Well, what's it worth to you?
Yeah, $20. Drop $20 in that box over there, and you have a milkshake.
You're on your way to Dairy Queen, bro.
Yeah. Apparently, there's even a place in Germany. There's like a fantastic building called the Butter Tower, and it was built 100% on Catholics paying the dispensation tax for dairy. So many people were just like,
interesting.
Yeah, I want to eat dairy during Lent.
Yeah. Butter's delicious.
Yep. So, all of it was basically changed officially in 1966 by Paul VI in his Apostolic Constitution. Penitential. Is that it? Penitential. Yeah. Penitential. I thought there was another word after it, but it's not there. And it's basically just now abstinence Fridays and Lent, partial fasting on Good Friday. So now it used to be that, Catholics had a harder Lent than Muslims had a Ramadan. Now Ramadan is harder than Catholic Lent.
Way harder. Yeah. Yeah.
So we look like wusses.
Yeah. In general, that's a cultural shift, right?
Yeah.
Catholicism used to have much tougher, manlier norms than Islam. And they acknowledge this all throughout the Middle Ages. But now, the culture we've been raised in, most people don't even know. The Christian culture, the Roman Catholic culture is so weak that when you even hear about Ramadan in grade school, you're like, oh, wow, they're tough. Like that's a manly challenge. That's That's fasting. That's abstinence.
When we were interviewing Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs, when he was a teenager, he's like, I wanted to be a Muslim because they actually tried. They actually were
so
passionate.
Many people have commented on that. Yeah. They're like, Harrison wanted to be Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. But it's true. There's wisdom in that. In that. You got to know your enemy and know what they do well. And we used to do it even better. That's the point.
Yeah. We used to be better. So, since the 1200s, so when Thomas Aquinas, everything I just read there from Aquinas, when he was keeping Lent, that was the books. He was eating no food till 3. He couldn't have been that big a guy. Everybody says Thomas Aquinas was fat. I don't think he was. He was just big boned.
He's always pictured as maybe 3 spins around. Yeah. He could have been a tray. Right. The way the cartoon Thomas that comes down to us is like, he's very big boned.
Yeah, he's big boned. But I mean, imagine if you were keeping this Lent every year, bread, vegetables, and salt with beer.
Yeah.
No intermittent fasting till 3 p.m. every day, from midnight to 3 p.m. every single day. By the time you rolled up on Easter Sunday, you would have been a little bit lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Snickers bars to catch up on, right?
That's right.
The angelic doctor. If we've been told correct, then he was losing for a few months and then gaining the rest of the year.
Yeah, it comes out to 46 days of fasting and abstinence. 46 days, and remember, Ash Wednesday, a Good Friday would have been a black fast, no food, from midnight Thursday till noon Saturday, after the Holy Saturday vigil. And back then, Holy Saturday was not kept at night; it was kept in the morning. So, which it was until 1955. Right. Now, between 1274, when Thomas Aquinas died, it's really like in the 17 and 1800s when things get lax, and eventually they allow. So in 1960, on the books, if you were before Vatican II, you could eat eggs during Lent. You could eat dairy during Lent. In fact, you could even fry your vegetables in animal lard if there was no meat present. Mm-hmm. It's like animal shortening. That was the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you got to make a choice here. There's a personal selection process that goes in this, not to de-objectify it, but once you're meeting the bare minimum, you're like, okay, am I going to go all the way to the Thomas Aquinas gold medal standard, or am I just going to, take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say my lunch with my relations. It's like, you got to hit that standard. You can't be like, well, I already ordered.
Right.
You got to go home and bring that meat to your dog. And if it's chopped up and too fine to pick out, it's like, okay, that's the bar, which is very low, which is why it's so offensive not to hit it. I mean, sometimes you forget. If you forget, then. That's
right. It's happened to me once. I remember it was my, I was traveling in an airport in a rush, getting to my gate. I had like 15 minutes, hadn't eaten. So I got it was in the morning. I got an Egg McMuffin, ate it in the got on the plane. And then like hours later, I was like, oh, there's ham in that Egg McMuffin. Mm-hmm. It's a Friday in Lent. Fortunately, where I was going, it was a conference. There was a Catholic priest there. I was like, hey, can I talk to you real quick? And he was like, sure. I was like, I need to make a quick confession. It'll be like a minute. He's like, okay.
You confess that even if it was holy, even if it was a 100% accidental?
It's probably not necessary, but I did.
Because there's no subjective portion.
Afterwards, he kind of chuckled and just kind of patted me on the back. He's like, you're a good guy. And that was it. I don't know. I just it was not a big deal. Like, here's a priest. I know him. I'm at this Catholic conference. This is going to take less than 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah, you can rush through the
because there's going to be masses at the conference. I don't want to not go to the masses for the weekend.
Right.
Until I get back home
Yeah, I don't think that's a sin.
I don't think it's a mortal sin. I just like to be as squeaky clean as I can usually. So maybe it's over scrupulous. I shouldn't have said that. Made everybody over scrupulous. Everyone's going to watch that and be over scrupulous.
You're just telling a story.
I mean, I've heard that breaking the Friday abstinence before Vatican II was considered a mortal sin. I've heard that. Mortal.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
But all mortal sin has to have the subjective component.
Intention. I was not saying, you're right. I wasn't saying on Friday morning at DFW airport, I know it's Friday, but man, that ham on the McMuffin is the bomb. Screw it. I'm eating it.
Right.
So, yeah.
That happens when you're not preparing your own food, by the way. Like I would say, that's only happened to you once. It happens to me one or two times.
Well, you live in California.
Yeah.
People are trying to. I just think it's more cultural. No, I just think in Texas it's more Lenten is more cultural because of our Hispanic population.
But we have a bigger Hispanic population.
That's true, y'all do. Never mind.
But I mean, it's more just probably me. I haven't been. I told you my family story. Maybe I'm just tainted. I feel like I'm good as long as when I remember it, and I usually try to remember it, and I've been better throughout the years. But I mean, this is a big issue. People are forgetting. Particularly
the other problem is when you get together and someone invites you over to their house on Friday night and it's burger night and it's fourth Sunday in Lent. It's like I just don't eat it. Our family knows when it's Lent. Even they know like Fridays during the year we don't typically eat meat, right? During the year.
Neither do we.
And then in Lent they know.
Well, no. This does not extend to what you said about. I mean, if you remember it and you're trying your best to remember it, there is no debate here. You just can't do it. What about if you go over to someone's house and they're serving meat? You have to say, I'll just have the veggie plate and then get some dairy at home or whatever.
Exactly.
But no. So I'm not making that squishy exception. I'm literally saying if it slips your mind, and this does happen to people, then whatever. But yeah, also no meat is still in a hortatory way. It's still on the books all year round, right? They just made it's weaponized ambiguity. We should clarify that.
We should go ahead. People, say it.
No meat is on the books for Fridays year round. Meat abstention, except there are all these carve outs, no pun intended, built into it, and you can do alternative. What's the term of art? Penance.
Alternative penance. Yeah. But what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know. Like, what is an acceptable penance to replace no meat?
No one knows.
I once heard a priest say, we'll say the Divine Mercy Chaplet. If you're in a situation, it's the only thing you can eat on a Friday night is a hot dog for some reason. Then
there's no meat in that anyway.
The only thing you can eat, we'll say the Divine Mercy Chaplet. But to me, saying the Divine Mercy Chaplet, which takes 8 minutes, or less, is way easier than not eating meat on Friday.
Which is why everyone wants to do it.
Right. Yeah. So to me, I just want to be traditional. I want to be in the same church with practices that approximate Thomas Aquinas, Bonaventure, Pius X, St. Augustine, Little Flower, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross. I want to be in that milieu. So I want to not eat meat on Friday. And so, and on that topic, I want to extend and stretch myself during this next Lent. And it kind of goes back to our original thesis for this podcast show. I want to fast. My fasting, my penance, my prayer, my hunger, my lack of energy for the next 46 days is going to be for Pope Francis and for the cardinals and for our bishops and for our priests. It's got to be that way. And again, it's not like I'm being an activist because they don't care that I'm doing this. They don't even know. They don't care.
It's supernatural.
But I'm asking Jesus Christ, take this suffering, this hunger, this weakness, this lack of energy, and supernaturalize it and somehow obtain graces for conversions, and so that the church of my children and the church of my grandchildren is pure, good. They can be proud about being a Catholic and not be embarrassed about being a Catholic.
That's right.
So I'm going to go. I know you're not supposed to, boast about your fasting, but I'm going to go for the 3 p.m. thing.
Wow. Every day.
Yeah. I'm going to try it every day. I might fail. I'm going to go. I did one Lent back when I was an Anglican. I did an entirely meatless Lent. No meat. And It was really hard. I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really tough. I've never done it since, which tells you how hard it was.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go this time, the 3 p.m. I'm going to try the no meat.
The problem with 3 p.m. for me, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. For me, the problem getting up and teaching from 8 to about 3 is I start getting migraine. I'm not talking about on Fridays or the days where it's mandated to do this, but every day I start getting, not migraines, I get bad tension headaches that are related to not eating. Mm-hmm. And if it's on one of the days where it's mandated, I'll deal with the tension headache. But every day, what I might try this year is, there's talk of this. I don't want to signal this and then not do it.
Right.
I'm rolling around, sleeping on the floor every night during Lent. A buddy of mine suggested this. And I like that stuff. Also, Lent pretty much comprises the second half, almost mathematically, it's 46 days. It's the exact second half of this Exodus 90 that I've been doing. But I am doing a modified one. When you said you forgot, ate meat on a Friday and then confessed it, I on Exodus 90, you're supposed to abstain from meat on Wednesdays and Fridays.
That's right.
And I had ham in a breakfast sandwich that I'd forgotten about. And I was like, oh, this was a Wednesday. So, it's bonus. It's add extra.
Yeah.
But still, I felt bad and I missed that. And, the slip-ups will happen. The more rigorous you go, the more rigor you shouldn't be allowing the slip-ups if you're doing the post-Vatican II.
Right.
It's so bare bones.
Yes.
You can't afford. But look at what he's trying to do. Look at what you're trying to do. Not eat any meat for a whole Lent or not eat before 3 for an entire Lent. The higher the standard, the more carve-outs will be natural and non-sellout-ish.
That's right. I've done Exodus 90 2 times. The first time was a great experience. Second time wasn't, for some reason, it just wasn't as great for me. I don't know why, but the first time was just spiritually rich and wonderful. If y'all don't know what Exodus 90 is, it's a program for men who come together into small groups, and they do no TV, no internet, except for work, no meat on Wednesdays and Fridays, a rigorous workout schedule, devotions every day. What am I missing?
No snacks, no sugar.
No snacks, no sugar.
Alcohol.
No alcohol. Yeah. So it's pretty rigorous. You do it for 90 days. And it's a great program. I encourage every guy out there, gets a group of guys, Exodus 90. But when we did it, if you messed up, like you ate ham on Wednesday, you just texted the other guys in the group, hey guys, I messed up. Right. I ate ham on a Wednesday. That way you had to acknowledge it, so you couldn't be like slipping up every single week. And they'd be like, okay, thanks for letting us know. No big deal, right? Yeah. And then if we would make in our group, we had exceptions. So if it's like, hey, it's my twin's birthday, can I have an exception to participate in the cake? And they'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Or it's my wife and I's 10th anniversary. Can I have a glass of wine when I take her out to dinner?
Right.
Yeah, but we would just text each other ahead of time. Hey, can I get a dispensation?
Also, we didn't, even the first time when I was more enthusiastic and it was more enriching than it is this second time around, which I'm currently in the middle of, we were like, none of us really watched TV, but the only thing I watch is sports on TV. I was like, this is just, if I'm going to watch a basketball game, I'm going to watch a basketball. So we all carved that. This doesn't come from the Holy Magisterium, right? No. Or the scripture. You can make it your own without it being weak. But it's good to have other guys to hold you accountable, because if you just did Exodus 90 by yourself, you would make all sorts of dispensations for yourself. By having the other guys to hold your feet to the fire makes it a very profitable experience. Yes.
Yeah.
But you can carve it together as your group. It's ad hoc. Correct. The whole thing is meant to be ad hoc.
Yeah.
I had one guy that was really serious about doing it, a good friend. He's a professional fighter, so when he goes for anything, he goes Roman. And he actually ended up sitting it out because he didn't want any of the carve-outs. And I was kind of like, dude, like, just do it with us and have a couple carve-outs. He's like, I can't do it this time. I'll do it later in the year. I was like, it's better to do it 90% and have some TV. But that's just how he is. He's hardcore. Yeah. He's a professional, was collegiate wrestler, All-American. So when he's like, oh, well, it says to do this, you do. He's making weight. He can lose 20 pounds in 10 days. Yeah. I guess he felt that was a sellout. But I think it's better to do. And like, not watching TV is not one of the more important things. You can substitute for it.
Right. One of the things kind of like Exodus 90 that Joy and I do as a married couple, during Lent, we give each other dispensation authority over the other person. So usually we don't drink alcohol during Lent. It's one of the things we've done for a long time. But Joy can give me a drink or make me have a drink whenever she wants.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she'll say you're dispensed. So like, let's just say I've had like a really hard day or whatever. It's like or it's a celebratory thing. It's like your brother-in-law's birthday party. And they're like, hey, you know, what kind of scotch you want? You're like, I'll pass. I'm good. And then Joy will appear like 5 minutes later with a scotch. It's like, I want you to have this. And then I have to have it. Kind of like that. Yes. And it makes your marriage awesome too.
Yeah.
And then I can do the same thing back to her too, you know?
Yeah.
So like if she did give up ice cream or whatever, and you're at a birthday party and she says, no, I don't want it. You can be like, you're having some ice cream.
Tell the waiter, like,
yeah, hook this up.
Send over a sundae.
And then she looks at you and you're like, I want you to eat that. So we kind of have our little dispensations worked into Lent, which maybe is cheating. I don't know, but I think it's kind of good.
That's not relativism. I mean, this is where when you do, this is what I said, when you do an extra, you can do this stuff. When you're doing the bare minimum, there's no carve out. There's no hollow out. Like that. So yeah, the way that I always justified the Sunday exception was,
dude, Cradle Catholics are all over that.
No, I know.
All the converts I know, they like go on Sundays. And all the cradles I know, they're like, no, Sundays are off, dude. Haven't you heard? I'm like, not so sure about that.
I mean, it's a cultural thing, but the thing is, there are like 7 Sundays or whatever it is, and whatever, 46, 47 days.
It's 46 days.
40.
Yeah, because the Sundays.
These days I'm trying to do extra anyway, so I figure it doesn't matter. I mean, there is a subjective component to this. You know?
That's right.
Exodus 90. The other thing is, it's impossible for me to. You're supposed to. Did you take the cold showers on Exodus 90?
Yeah. Well, our group did cold showers, or if it was like you're really grimy, like after a workout, you really need to get a good scrub down. We would allow it to be kind of warm, but you had to finish it cold, which is almost worse than taking a cold shower.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's called the Scottish shower. James Bond does it in the books.
Oh, really?
Warm followed by turn it all the way to cold and then just endure it.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's kind of what we'd tried.
So that was our group's policy in Exodus 90.
Yeah, we've been soft on the showers. Okay. It's just really hard. It's really, really hard.
You're in California.
Yeah, I know.
Your water's not even that cold. The guys who are up in like Minneapolis doing it, when they hit the cold water.
No, I know.
They about die.
I was talking to a young man out of Thomas Aquinas College, and he's up north now, and he was saying he says a prayer and he jumps in to the icy cold shower, and it's like extra icy because it runs by the pool and the house he's renting or something. And I'm like, that's the hardest thing about it. I cannot eat. I can work out every day. I cannot eat between meals. I can give up alcohol. I can give up, certain kinds of food. I can read every day. Daily rosary is also part of it. All that's cake, really, for me. No sugar in the coffee, even though I like sugar in the coffee. But a cold shower, it feels like you're going to have a heart attack. So it just goes to show there's a component when you're playing in the big leagues, when you're trying the hard stuff like Exodus 90, everyone reports what's the hardest facet of this for you. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, the cold showers. I when I go to the cold, I stand there and just take it, and I pray 3 Hail Marys. Well, I just take it, and then after about 3 Hail Marys, you're okay with it. But it's the initial shock. It's like electricity going up and down your spine. It's just the cold.
But see, my buddy Brian, no, that's hardcore. That's more than I've done. You've done the icy cold, but my buddy Brian didn't want to do it. He's like, if I'm going to do it all the way, I'm going to jump in from my dead sleep in the night. I'm going to jump in freezing cold. And I'm like, yeah, it's just really hard. That's really, really hard for me. I wake up cold, even in the desert where I live in California, in Central California. I wake up cold every day, and I'm like shivering.
Right. But see, I always tell people, look, don't worry about, cold showers or whatever it is. Do the fasting. Fasting is the traditional Catholic Old Testament, New Testament, everything. That is our worldview. The withholding of food is. Now, if you can't do that, If you can't, for some reason, like you're diabetic or there's some reason you can't do it, you can't do it. No big deal. There are a bunch of other things you can do. I once put a thing, how long ago is this? A couple years ago, I put down 40 ideas for Lent. And I'm going to run through them real quick. Invite 40 people to Mass. That's a pretty good penance, man. Not really a penance, but like a mission. Just invite people to go to Mass with you. Just your neighbor, your landlord, your mom, 40 people.
Right.
Pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet daily. Increase your weekly giving by $40. Give up alcohol. Pick up the check for friends all during Lent. Every time you go out to eat, pick up the check. Attend a recollection or a mission. Attend Stations of the Cross. That's before Vatican II. Almost every Friday, people were going to Stations of the Cross and then having a soup meal together. Pray the Rosary daily. Daily Mass. I can hear your turtle, Tim. It's okay.
He bangs against
He's getting crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody, Tim's got a turtle in the room. Sometimes I can hear him. He's banging right now.
Yeah.
Attend daily Mass. Invite someone to your home every week for a meal. Like, this is hospitality. It's a spiritual gift. We don't, for some reason, Christians no longer think that that's something we should be doing, but it's a form of evangelization.
Right.
Write a letter to your priest, thanking him for his ministry.
Right.
Write a letter to your parents or someone related to you for encouragement. Pray the Angelus daily. Pray 3 Hail Marys every day against sexual temptation. Set up an altar in your home. Stop at a church on the way home from work every day and make a 5-minute visit. That's a big one too.
That's good. That's a good one.
Because, a lot of guys, I'm the same way, Tim. Like, the transition from work to family is rough. A lot of guys talk about this. You go from, dealing with students or bank loans or whatever it is, and then you walk in and there's your wife and your kids, and your wife could be like in a dress, smiling with lipstick on, like, "Hey, honey," and give you a big kiss, or she could be like crying with kids crying. You never know what you're going to.
They're different worlds.
They're different worlds, and you never know. And it's an immersion when you come home.
It is. It is.
And so I think, a lot of guys in the old days, they would always swing by the bar and have a drink on the way home. That was pretty common back in the day. Now it's like you're not supposed to do that because that's not, I don't know, complementarian or whatever. But this is kind of the, instead of having a drink, it's kind of the same thing. You just stop into church, have a breather, make a little disconnect between work and home, and then come home. I like it.
Yeah, I'm praying. It's a better version of that.
Right.
Yeah, some of my friends, I think, really struggle with it. I've always been whatever, but it is definitely there, even though it's a real thing due to the masculine nature or whatever. And yeah, I think, because I even get a thing where I'm like, when I'm in the car, I just want to get where I'm going. I think that's also a male thing. So half the time I do drive by 2 churches on the way home. And half the time I just think this is a good instinct to do anyway. And if I don't do it, it's just because I want to get where but it's like, take the extra 15 minutes to get, you can get lazy getting out of the car, but I think this is a really good thing to do.
Yeah. And you don't have to like go and have a retreat there. Just, sit down and maybe just have a 2 or 3 5-minute time with Jesus. And then like, all right, head to the family, Jesus. See you tomorrow. Read all 4 Gospels during Lent. That's another old tradition, to move through all the Gospels every single year and do it during Lent. Wake up at a set time. Attend an earlier Mass on Sunday as a penance. It's kind of hard when you got kids like us. Right. Give up salt and pepper at meals. Give up using butter.
You mean listening to old salt and pepper records during meals? Because that's non-negotiable in my household.
What a man! Yeah.
Yeah. No,
is that salt and pepper? What a man! Or is that?
I honestly don't know. Okay. I just remember they're bankrupt. I saw on.
Oh, are they? Bummer.
They were bankrupt.
They need to do a tour. Comeback tour.
People went on salt and pepper fasts, and that bankrupted them. Right.
Give up milk and sugar in your coffee, or just give up coffee altogether. Give up cussing. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Give up at least 1 meal a day. Maybe don't go to 3.
He doesn't mean saying yes. You don't mean saying GD. You don't even have a right to do that.
No, you can't ever say goddamn in vain. In fact, when I taught high school back in the day, Tim, I used to tell my students, I would rather you drop the F-bomb in class than to say God's name. And they're like, what? Are you serious?
They like it though.
Yeah, but after I explained it to him, like, oh, yeah, I was like, is there one of the 10 commandments against the F-bomb? They're like, no. I mean, kind of there is. But I was like, is there a 10 commandment explicitly about taking God's name in vain? They're like, yeah. I was like, which one's worse? And like, good call. I never thought about it like that.
No, they like it. No. Saying that, well, St. Paul says never talk about things,
Right.
You're not allowed. It depends the context, verb or noun and all that. But if you drop something on your toe, that versus GD, it's like one violates the Decalogue. No, the young men like it. I say it all the time. Yeah, they like it actually.
Yeah,
we're gonna hear about this. I'm sure.
I'm sure we're gonna hear about it. Leave a comment. One of the things I find really helpful in my life as a dad is creating a list of all the good things in my life and then just praising God for it. I like to go to a church and sit there for like 5 minutes and like jot down awesome things and then just say a glory be or a te deum and thank God. That's a good one to do.
I pray rosaries instead of praying. I like to obviously have an intention list, and a lot of times the intentions are for my wife, my kids, and myself, specific things. But it's some rosaries, when you do a daily, the good part is you could be like this daily, one daily rosary this week. I'm just going to thank God for specific things. One thing in my life per decade or something like that. It's very good.
The other good thing about a daily rosary is, you meet people all the time or on Twitter. They're like, hey, pray for my sick uncle. And you're like, I'll pray for you. But that could be so like cliche, like I'll pray for you. And then you never think about them again.
Right.
Either I'll stop right then and say a Hail Mary, or if it's a big intention and I'll remember, I'll say, I'll pray for you tonight on the rosary. Because then you have a time every night and then you just like insert everything people said to you on the rosary. And then you're not a liar when you say, I'll pray for you.
It does weird me out. I say that to people and I try to just, like the other day I was thinking of your whatever. I was praying a rosary for you, actually. I'm saying this on the record, just for your whatever little health issues come in and out. And of all of our lives. And I was like, I better do this right now because I said I would do this and blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, it is. Yeah. That's another good habit to get into, because I do tell people, or people even will ask through the show, would you pray for this? I'm like, okay, I'm at least going to pray 3 Hail Marys for this right now because I'll forget.
You're better than me because I always do 1 Hail Mary for him.
Well, that's still good.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, and it's not lying anyway. It's part of Christian life. Right. Pray for me. And you're like, I will. You're not going to be like, no, I won't.
Yeah. If you're in a real big hurry, I'd just be like, Holy Mary, help this person. But yeah. Sure. Yeah, don't say you're going to pray for people and don't do it. That's not cool. That's not cool to them. It's not cool to God. Okay, so I'll just finish these up. Go on a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage doesn't have to be to Rome or the Holy Land or to Compostela. It can be a local pilgrimage. Like there's a group of dads and sons. They'll go to a local statue of Our Lady here in DFW, and it's, you go there and you pray some Hail Marys and you go to lunch afterwards. It's a good thing to do. Or you go on a major pilgrimage or sign up for a pilgrimage, or you can come with me and Father Hallwell to the Holy Land, Jerusalem. Get a new image for your home, a new crucifix, statue of Our Lady, get it blessed. Make a donation to a seminary. Plan a blowout Easter party. We usually do a blowout Easter party. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, your turtle, dude. He's getting after it. Say the St. Michael prayer daily. We always add that to our rosary. Say the Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory be for the Pope every day. Read papal encyclicals. Attend. This is a good one, Tim. Attend one or all of the Triduum liturgy. So Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. With kids, it's a little hard. So my wife and I will usually divvy up who goes to which. Like, okay, I'll take Maundy, Thursday. You take Good Friday. Yeah. Make a nightly examination of conscience. Go to confession. Weekly during Lent. Mm-hmm. Just get down to it. Get down to it. Yeah. Yeah. So those are all positive things you can do. But ultimately, I think we Catholics just need to get back to at least pre-Vatican II standards, if not medieval patristic standards, because our Lord said some demons only come out with prayer and fasting. And so if we really believe our Lord Jesus Christ, we need to pray and fast. And unfortunately, our church only has 2 fast days every year, which include a full meal and 2 collation snacks. I don't really think that's what Jesus meant when he said fast. I'm just kind of you can have a Pop-Tart twice a day. Because in the Old Testament, when they fast, that meant no food and water for a whole day. No food and water. That's an Old Testament
water?
And Jewish
Really?
Old Testament fast. Yeah. So that's what Jesus meant.
What do you think of the multi-day bread and water fast?
I think it's good.
That's pretty. That's still harder than it sounds. I mean,
it was good
when it's just You know who does some of this fasting is Protestant evangelicals. When I was in college as a Protestant evangelical, I went to this fasting conference, Tim, and it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we broke the fast on Sunday afternoon. Right. Everybody at the conference. And this is like hundreds of people, maybe 1,000 people. And that was almost a full 3-day fast, you know? And it wasn't like that was even that big of a deal. It's like we just did it. And we prayed the whole time, and there's like sermons and preaching. It was like a giant mission retreat. We Catholics can do that. I mean, unless you have a health problem, are you going to feel horrible? Yes. Are you going to think about food a lot? Yes. Are you going to have those hunger pains in your stomach? Yes. Part of it. Are those good for you?
Yeah.
Yes.
You will have a headache. If someone says, well, whenever I fast, I get a headache. Yeah.
It happens.
Your body's dying. Your body's like, what is going on right now? There's no food inside of me. This is horrible.
Yeah. What? Well, I'm an input-output grid. Where's the input? But people that want to take it back a half a step just to what we were saying about Fridays and no meat year-round, abstention. If you say, hey, I need meat year-round and I'm meeting the minimum standard for doing it during Lent, like fine. But the alternate penance should be something that's harder than meat. If you're like, you need meat, fine. That's cool. Take a cold shower. To me, that's way harder than not eating meat for a day. Right? Just make sure that the alternate penance isn't. Yeah, you're not
cutting yourself a break. Nerf, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my advice on and we do in my household also. It's more fungible. Obviously, you could it's a little more viable, but year round if we're getting pizza on a Friday night, it's cheese. If we're doing or sometimes even what we'll do, because when we're big milk and cereal people, I mean, babyish cereals, we love sweet cereals, Lucky Charms, like we'll just do that for dinner on a lot of Fridays if we don't want to go out and make fancy fish or tuna or whatever.
We do a lot of quesadillas. Get yourself a dang quesadillas. We do the fish sticks on Friday a lot. Our Friday night at the Marshall's almost always fish sticks with salmon for Dad or something else. I'm just not a big fan of the fish sticks.
I'm not a fish stick guy. I can't.
I'll do something else. And then pasta or cheese pizza.
Us too.
You can also do cheesy nachos or quesadillas. But yeah, those are all good options. I have a blog post too. It's like top 10 recommended Friday meatless meals. You can look at that too. I should have prepped that for the show, but oh well. But I mean, this is about taking it to the next level. It's not a contest. It's not showing off. It's really trying to grow closer to the Lord and driving out these demons in the church. So I hope this is inspirational, people. I hope people take it to the next level during this Lent. And the most important thing, not the most important, one of the most important things is write this stuff down. I make all my kids write down their Lenten resolutions because you will forget, especially when you're like, now did I say dark chocolate? Or this is a common one, is Nutella chocolate? Because it's technically a hazelnut spread. So I gave up chocolate, but can I have Nutella on my toast? I can't really remember what I said about that. I know I gave up alcohol. Yeah, I don't know. I know, but did I give up beer or was it just hard alcohol? No. You write this down.
Because then it's like having a written constitution.
Exactly.
And because I have literally family members that are soft on a lot of the other stuff. I mentioned some of them, but like during Lent, they'll start like, this is the most bizarre thing. They'll start imposing on me their thing. And I'm like, I'm following the meat abstention and I'm doing all these other extra things, but I didn't give up what you gave up. They're like, well, I thought pretty much it's understood everyone gives up all sugar. I'm like, no, some Lents I'd give up something that has nothing to do with sugar.
Right.
This Lent I can't have any anyway because I'm on Exodus 90. But people start superimposing, like you live in Norway and there is superimposing Swedish laws on you. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
No, I'm going, this is what I gave up, but do write it down and you can make whatever stipulations you want. I mean, it's like, You can, if it's a little weak, says I, but I'm not the Lord. Yeah. You can just give up like dark chocolate if you want. Right. Just write it down and stick to it.
Write it down.
And probably give up more than that.
You know, one of the things I want to close with this, or at least say it, is, you know, in America, we think giving up stuff is giving up mainly sugar and alcohol, like our sweets, our you know, historically, that's not what Lent's about. Remember, they allowed sugar and sweets and alcohol. What they forbade in the old days was things that were absolutely vital and essential to you as a human. What are you made out of? Meat, right? Meat and fat. That's what you're made out of. So you don't get to eat that. Christ gave up his flesh on Good Friday for our salvation. We give up flesh. This is Thomas Aquinas. Christ gave up his flesh. We give up flesh. And then if you listen to my podcast, it's episode 129 on this channel. Thomas Aquinas explains, it's been proven by science, that when you reduce fat and protein from your diet, your libido goes down. And this is another thing that Thomas Aquinas talks about with regard to the withholding of meat in the diet. So has to do with lust and libido as well. So check that one out, episode 129. I'll link it.
When you brought up all men are made of meat and fat, I was going to say I'm just made of meat.
Yeah,
speak for yourself,
there's a little fat in there.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
For most men, maybe.
Yeah, for most. Well, you know, your brain is made mostly of fat.
Yeah. Lipids are an important part
of my little girls, when they love to eat that gristle and that fat, bacon. Like they're building that brain.
It's brain development. We learned this with the firstborn, particularly first 5 years. You want to lard them up. Little kids are lardy.
They gotta be. Well, it's sad. There's been some cases now with parental abuse, vegan parents who are imposing veganism on their children, and their children have some serious problems.
You want a tip for how to irritate them? Call them vegans, which is what I do. It drives them nuts, and I'm like, it's Las Vegas, it's Vegas, Vegas, the stars based on
vegetable,
vegetable.
It's not vegetable.
I call them vegans. It makes them
really. I'll try that.
It's fun. They'll correct you every time. Okay. I don't know why.
I'll say vegan. I'll say vegan on the show. We'll say vegan from now on.
I like it.
All right. Well, that's great, everybody. Please like this video and please hit the subscribe button underneath this video. There's a little bell there, and that's supposed to tell YouTube that you want to be notified. Some people claim that they're not getting notified. That's been a more common complaint on YouTube lately. Some people say, well, just turn off the notification, then turn it back on. It might reactivate it. I don't know. But if you hit the little bell there and there's like little lines around it, that means you'll be notified when these videos come out. And Lent is coming upon us. So get out a sheet of paper, get a pen, and write down what you're going to do and stretch yourself. It's always better, I think, to stretch yourself and fail a little bit than to set your standards really low and not do anything, you know?
Give up macaroons only. Yeah, even though you've never had a macaroon.
Yeah, it's no good. So there it is. Pray the rosary every day. Fast, pray, fast and pray for the Pope. That's all I got to say about that. Out.
Happy Lent.
Happy Lent.